Welcome to Watch and Learn. We've got an exciting episode today working with Pro Stitcher and also turning the quilt to do the side borders. So stay tuned and keep watching. I'm Kristina Whitney, a studio educator here at Handi Quilter, and
Kim Sandberg, studio educator here at Handi Quilter.
And we are so excited to continue this around the block quilt that Kim's been working on. We're going to use some different Pro Stitcher techniques, and when I say we, Kim is going to be showing you some different Pro Stitcher techniques, and I'll jump in with you.
Yeah.
But we're also going to show how to rotate the entire quilt after you've gotten the main part done to do your side borders. So I'm really excited. We get a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, we do. So we figured we'd show you the process.
Yeah. Okay, so you did your free motion stuff.
Yep.
You've done some stitch in the ditch to stabilize.
Yep.
Let's see what you've got planned now.
Okay, so the next thing I want to do is just use a couple of different techniques in Pro Stitcher for stitching this out. So first I'm going to show you how to create a design using mark. We're going to stitch out some of those designs that we created in Designer in the previous episode. And then I'm going to show you just how to basically set up a design in Pro Stitcher and stitch it out. One of my favorite ones to put in and fill. And then we'll, like you said, turn the quilt. So,
okay.
All right, let's get going. So if we take a look down here on the quilt, I've got these fun flying geese right here. So they're pieced here, but they don't go all the way across this border. I've got just some plain fabric right here that I want to fill in. And I want to do the ghost quilting with the same shape. Now, I know that Kristina would have started marking things, gotten out a ruler, and just done it, but I really like to use mark for something like this. So there's a little bit of a way that I'm going to do this, and this is always, I think it's always fun to work with Kristina on things like this, because she's always like, I would have done that a totally different way. just to kind of show you how my brain works and what I would do. So I know that I need to fill in this space right here with an equal amount of flying geese, and I want them to be about the same size. So the first thing I'm going to do is use the measure tool in Pro Stitcher to measure just how long this is, and then find an equivalent amount here, create that design, stitch it here, stitch it out here, and then do a little bit more is the way I'm going to do it. So I'm going to bring the machine over here, and I'm going to just put that nice little laser to the needle right on the edge of this fabric. And then on the Pro Stitcher screen, I'm going to tap, first I'm going to hit refresh so we can see my crosshairs on the screen. And then I'm going to tap measure. And as soon as I start, and I'm also going to tap follow so that stays in the center screen. As soon as I start moving, you'll see the numbers starting to change in that little box there, telling me how far I've moved. Well, now I've moved to the very edge of that, the bottom of that flying goose. I guess the single one is a flying goose. And it says it's 10.35 inches. Okay, so now I want to find an equivalent length in the rest of these here. So I'm just going to tap the measure to turn it off, and then I'm going to turn it on again, and I'm looking for roughly 10.3 inches. So I'm just going to move that across until I see, oh, I went over a little bit. Okay, so right there at the top of that goose, I think we've established that we'll call it a goose. I
love how we entertain ourselves with words.
I know. So that's 10.13, which is close enough. I mean, that's like 0.2 of an inch, however much that is. We'll be fine. Okay, so I need to create a design from here to here so that it will fit from here to here.
Okay, so you're going to use these existing geeses to create your
triangles
design.
To create my design. Exactly. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is turn my measure off, but I'll leave a follow on here just to get started. So I'm going to go to the Pro Stitcher tab and select record, because that's where the mark function is. Now, mark is really, it's such a fun tool to use in Pro Stitcher because you can create straight line designs. So I'm going to just line up right on the top of that point of that goose, and I'm going to drop my first point. Okay.
Now, how did you drop your point?
So I can either tap this button here on the screen, which I'm actually going to do a quick little undo there because I don't want that to actually have 2 points there, or I can tap the handlebar on the Amara 20, it matches that little diamond there in the mark right there, that little diamond. So I'll tap that, and then I'm gonna move up here to this top corner and just put that laser light right there in the top corner. I'm gonna come over halfway now. So if you remind me to keep hitting refresh, we'll be able to see what's going on. So I moved over to halfway through this diamond because I want to make this stitch continuously so that it crosses over itself so I get nice sharp points. So I'm going to drop my next point here, and then I'm going to move down to this corner here, and we'll refresh again so you can see. And I'm going to drop a point here, then I'm going to move up to halfway across and drop a point. Then up to that top corner, drop a point. So this is going to look like a really funky zigzag as I work my way across. But trust me, when I start coming back, it will make sense.
So every other triangle, you're doing the top point or the bottom point, depending on which one.
That's exactly right. Yep. I just want those to cross over each other. So this is my bottom triangle here. And so I'm going to come all the way down here to this bottom point. Drop a point right there. Then I'm going to start working my way back. And this is when, so far I've really just been paying attention to looking at the quilt to line up this design. Now I'm going to put that point right there, but then I'm going to take a second to really look on the screen and make sure you guys can see those orange crosshairs moving around there. I'm going to make sure that those crosshairs are pretty darn close right there on that point when I drop that point. So it'll cross over well. Then I'm going to move. You can even zoom in if you wanted to get it super, super accurate. And you know what? I'll show you how to do that on this next one. So I've got, looking at the quilt, I've got it positioned. Then like Kristina mentioned, I can grab the zoom tool here and zoom in and move those crosshairs so they are really just right on that point. Then I can go ahead and hit refresh and work my way back out. So I'm going to come out to this point here, come up this way.
So this is really testing how well you pieced your project.
It sure is. Yeah, you guys
are looking really good.
You guys are all going to see how maybe not quite perfect these are when we start stitching. Okay, here's my last one here. We'll come up to this corner. And then we'll come back up to that start point. And once again, looking at the screen, lining that up right inside so that the start and end point's there. So you can see that it's a little slanted, but that's just has to do with the way the quilt is loaded, because of course it's straight, right? Yeah. Okay, now what I want to do is I'm gonna go ahead and stitch this section first, then we're gonna reposition it. So before I stitch, I'm going to tap baseline and quilt, and then run, and we'll go ahead and stitch this. And like I mentioned before, there are a lot of different ways to do this. But this is just, in my mind, making it work here. This was the way to do it. Flip those threads.
Oh, this is looking great.
Yeah.
I love how you set it up so that those lines cross. It's so hard to get points to come right back together, so it's usually easier if those lines do cross over each other to make it more fluid, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, and to make sure that there's really a point right there. I actually learned this trick from Kathy Zimmerman. She's a fellow employee here at Handi Quilter. She showed me how to digitize flying geese like that so that you get those nice sharp points, which I thought was pretty brilliant.
It makes me think of like a continuous curve.
Yep.
Like sometimes we teach to do a serpentine rather than trying to do the little humps to make them match. So.
Exactly. Yep. No, you're exactly
right. Total side note there, squirrel.
No, you're totally good. Okay, so now I'm going to move the machine over here to this area here on the quilt that doesn't have anything pieced in it, and I'm going to create an area and then move that design over in there and stitch it out. So I'm going to go to the area tab, select the area tab, and then I am going to use multi-point, and I'm just going to set up the 4 corners.
Okay.
So,
and you're doing it right on this seam, not leaving any wiggle room.
You know what? I'm actually have that laser light just a hair inside of the seam because I don't want to risk stitching over the edge of the seam. So I'm like maybe like a 1/16 of an inch inside.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the ones that you just stitched out, and they don't go all the way to the very edge. So yeah, leaving a little bit of wiggle room is a great idea.
Just a little bit, yep. And I'll come up and do this one right here. Okay, so you can see here on the screen, I've got my area set up. Now, the easiest way to make this fit is we're going to use the magic button, as we like to call it. I'm going to use skew. So let's go try skew. I'll use regular skew. Looks pretty good. Let's see if border skew. No, you know what? I think regular skew actually does just a little bit of a better job.
I think I like that one.
I think I like it too. Okay, then I'll go ahead and baseline it.
Now,
and
can I
we'll
make
stitch it out?
a
Yeah,
little side note here?
absolutely.
So at the very beginning, when you were measuring the space and measuring your geese, even though the geese weren't perfectly the exact same size as your empty space, when you use skew, it makes it fit.
Exactly.
And nobody's going to notice
Nope.
that each one of those geese is off by like, each one of those geese, each one of those gooses, each one of
one
those
of the
triangles.
triangles.
We should have practiced this beforehand, our terminology. But yeah, so it'll make it look great.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stitch these out. We'll resume and we'll stitch these out. Then I'm just going to go back with Mark and quickly finish those. I've got 3 of the triangles geese left up here at the top that we'll stitch out. You see that's filling up that space very nicely. And then I have that nice ghost quilting just echoing the piecing throughout that part of the design.
So the next question is, are you planning on doing any background fills or anything on that, or leave it as is, which is fabulous?
Yeah, I think I'll probably leave it as is. I'm trying not to do any quilting any tighter than what's down here. But you know, you never know. Sometimes when I think I'm done with a quilt, I put the microfoot on and go back and start adding more, so you never know. Okay, so we're gonna pop over here and do these last 3 triangles with Mark. So on the screen, I'm gonna go ahead and clear what I already have. So we'll go to File and Clear All, because I don't need that previous design or that area. And then I'm gonna start up here at the top. Go to Pro Stitcher, and I'm going to choose that record function and do Mark again. And I'm going to do the exact same thing where I just work my way across, making that kind of funky zigzag look to get started. And I know in Kristina's mind, she's probably thinking, I could have already had this done with a ruler.
No, actually, when I do ghost quilting and stuff like this, I usually do use the Pro Stitcher.
Oh, okay.
Because of that skew function.
Yeah.
I don't have to do any of that measuring or marking or anything.
Yeah.
I let the computer do the marking.
Exactly. It is really, it's a really great tool. I love using this. And you know, if I did want to use this anywhere else on the quilt, I could save this design and use it somewhere else too. Just depending. I think I actually have some other flying geese in this quilt. I can't remember, but I do believe they're a different size. So I'll just use Mark again to do those ones. We'll get those 3 stitched out, and then I have that section finished. Some flying geese here in the morning.
That looks great. So my mind, as you mentioned earlier, is thinking of all the different ways that you could do this same thing. Like, what if we set up Mark for the entire part that's already pieced, and then just cropped off 3 of them and stitched out the remainder?
Yeah.
There's so many.
Oh yeah.
So many ways to do the same thing.
Exactly, and that's I really wanted to point that out. Like the way that I did it, measuring and just doing a section of it first. That it's just the way that when I looked at it, I went, okay, this is how I'm going to tackle it this time. Next time, I'll probably do it different. So, no wrong way of doing that. Okay,
Exactly.
so we're going to do some advancing here and get down to the next part, and we're going to let's stitch one of the sayings that we did in Designer last time.
I'm excited.
So
okay.
Let's go ahead and advance the quilt. As I mentioned when I first started talking about this quilt, I'm trying to make everything blend. So I've got this fun magenta here. It's So Fine from Superior Threads, which that's pretty much what I'm using is Superior Thread, or So Fine on all of these. I'm not changing my bobbin though, because I'm already using just like a purpley color. As I mentioned, I am using the ends and bits and bobs of bobbins. I think I've actually used like 5 different bobbin colors. Okay, now this is the fun part. I'm just gonna pull this through, and let's see if I'm having a really good day, if I can even pull it through the needle. Oh, look at that. It's a good day. Good day for quilting.
Yep.
Okay, and because this is the same thread, I'm just gonna kind of check my tension here. It feels good. I purposely used a very busy back, so I'm not so worried about tension things. Right, isn't that one of the
tip for our viewers?
The tips that we, I'd like to say it's the smart shortcuts that experienced quilters use. Okay, let's clear this screen, and I need to set an area up here. And then I need to grab, I've got a USB here. So I have my design saved on this USB. I'm just gonna go ahead and pop it here in the back. Make sure I put it in the right way. And I'll close that screen when it pops up and we'll open the design. So let's go File, Design, Open. And I need to get to my, okay, let's see if it's the D drive. Nope, it's the E drive because I've got 2 in here. Okay, and then I'm gonna do a stitch in time saves 9. So,
I love all these fun sayings.
I know. Well, and these were really fun. They're actually in the fabric. So that's where I found them. They're down here in this fabric. As I mentioned, I'm using a lot of scraps. These are some scraps left over from a really fun cotton and steel print from probably like 2015, but there's little, actually right there is where it says a stitch in time saves 9. So. All right, I'm gonna set up an area here, and then we're gonna just go ahead and make this work here. And just like you said, this is where I love being able to go in. We'll do a multi-point again. Set up that area and make the design fit. And as you're going to see when we look here on the screen, the design is a little bigger than the area. But if I go in and use that skew function again, it makes it fit perfectly. Isn't that great? Now, like I talked about in the previous video, I consciously chose this one. You notice there's a lot of start and stop points. I consciously chose that because I love this font and it's what I wanted to use. So this is going to take a minute to stitch out, but it will be worth it. So let's go ahead and
so you created an area, opened your design, skewed it in there. How quick was that?
Very quick. I mean, it does not take very long at all. Just a note, when I am stitching out words like this that are very small, I just went to my stitches per inch before I started stitching. I'm actually going to take my stitches per inch up to 14 because I want to make sure that I get nice round, everything's really nice and round. This is some pretty small detailed stitching, so I want small stitches. So something to consider.
Now what about your auto jump?
So I left my auto jump on at 6 because these are really small jumps. I think my longest jump is less than an inch. So it's just gonna pull that little bit over and then I can go ahead and trim my threads as I go.
So that means that you're not having to stop and pull up your bobbin every single time. But you do have that bobbin along the bottom that's being drug across that you're going to go back and stitch off afterwards.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. I will have to go back and do some clipping of threads on the back, which is fine.
And
it's
if
totally
you
fine.
prefer not to do that, you can always change your auto jumps down to 0 and it will pause at each start and stop so that you can pull up that bobbin thread.
Exactly. But I'm trying to see here.
It takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time. And sometimes, like if you are wanting to bury your threads, that's probably a route you would want to go. But on this one, I've got my tie-offs, I think, set at like 4 or 5, which I know is plenty to make it nice and secure. You can see how cute this is starting to look here.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll even add or up my stitch or my tie-offs so that when the machine does drag, it doesn't pull on those stitches as much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've also been known to pull the thread down
Yeah.
a little bit as it's moving over. Just, yep.
When I'm, you guys will, if you watch here on the next one, I've got my finger here ready. This is a little bit of a longer jump, so I'm actually going to just give just that little pull right there, just to give a little bit of slack on the thread.
Yep.
When I'm doing these really, really short ones, I don't worry about issues, but the longer ones, if you let your thread drag all the time on those ones, you can actually rub grooves into your glide foot.
Yep.
I noticed the other day my glide foot at home's got a nice little groove in the side of it. I'm like, ooh. So.
Yeah, I know we did a video one time and I was pulling the thread like that and people were freaking out. Why are you doing that? Yeah. That's why. We don't want it to have that extra strain. Sometimes if your tension is really tight also, or your top thread's tight, when it pulls it like that, there's just too much strain and you're going to get thread breaks. So lots of reasons.
Yep. You also want to make sure that you're not going to get a little bit of where like the fabric might gather a little bit there between the words.
Yep.
So.
Oh, this is looking great.
I know, isn't it fun? I love adding text to a quilt. I think it's really fun to have that.
It really personalizes it.
It does. It does. Very, very custom is what it makes it. And it's so easy to digitize these with Designer. That's the thing that I think is really, really fun. It's a tiny little stitch.
Yeah. I think I'm lazier than you when it comes to stitching things out. Usually when I digitize text, I always make them overlap to make each word its own thing because, yeah, I'm just impatient when it comes to this part.
And I absolutely do that too. It depends on the text I'm using and kind of the look I'm going for. This one, because I knew I was going to stitch this in a solid where you're actually really going to be able to see it, I really wanted this look. So
and I think you made a great choice with this one.
Yeah, well, thanks. This is it's a fun one.
I think it's funny that we're talking about how much time it takes. We're stitching out the word time.
I know. I didn't quite catch that, but you're right. A stitch in time saves 9. You know, I've always kind of wondered, what does this saying really mean?
Yeah, it saves 9 what? 9 lives?
9 minutes? 9 seconds?
Maybe one of our viewers knows and they'll post and let us know.
Yeah, if anybody knows the history behind this saying, that would be really kind of fun to know.
Okay, coming up on a longer jump. You've got your finger ready to give it some slack.
I'm going to just pull that a little bit, and here's my last word. Stitch out that 9. Those nice little tie-offs. Do a little bit more clipping here. I love these curved scissors. They make it so easy to just get in there and clip those threads.
So we've got one more block that you're going to do, is that correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to need to advance again.
Yep, we're going to advance one more time.
Are you going to change threads again?
No, this one's actually, so this quilt was kind of done where there's different sections that have colors, like over here is kind of the greens, over here is kind of the blues. This is like the magenta section, so we're going to stick with magenta.
Perfect.
All right, so we got this one all stitched out.
Oh, it looks so good.
Isn't that fun?
I love it, especially in those solids where you can really see it.
Isn't that fun? Yeah, I really had fun with that. Okay, so I'll go back later and clip all of those, and let's go ahead and advance this quilt again.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and pull the basting stitches.
Yeah, in one of our first episodes, you basted everything, and because of moving it back and forth between different quilts.
Yeah, and as I have been working my way through this quilt, I should mention, as I've been working my way through this way, I've also been doing a stitch in the ditch between every like little border. So I've really secured it as I've worked my way through it with that extra stitching in addition to the basting stitches. So, okay, there we go.
Okay.
This one's ready to go. So I want to show you guys just And this is just, it's a fun thing to do in Pro Stitcher. I love to do this. Let's go to File, Clear All. I'm going to set up an area for this one, and then we're going to go in and just manipulate a design, put it in here and stitch it out. So let's go to area, and I'm going to do a 4-point area again. It's one thing that's kind of nice about working with just these long sections, these long borders. Okay, so that's what we're going to fill in. And as you can see, it's a little crooked, but because it's going to stitch straight in there, it's going to be great. So let's go in, File, Design, Open. So this is a design that is in the Pro Stitcher library. It's in the Designs file. This is found in Pro Stitcher Premium, so it's in the Darlene Ep file, and it's this little mango chain. I just love this design. It's a little oval with connections on both ends, and it makes a little chain across the quilt. So we're going to go in and do a repeat on this one. So we'll just tap fill and see what happens. We got 3 rows. That's pretty great. You can see we've got a little bit of work here to do. First of all, I want to add another repeat horizontally. Okay, that looks good. And I want to offset this so that that middle row is moved over by a half. So we'll choose Wrap, and under horizontal, we'll tap this half button here, and it just moves that so it's right where it should be.
And I just want to emphasize that that half button is in the row, not the window.
Yeah,
it's in the row.
The row, because I want every other row to move over by a half a design. That's what that refers to, a half a design. Yep. Okay, so from here, now I've got a little bit of fixing to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is baseline, and then we're going to go in and use that skew button again and see if we can make this rotate a little bit and just fit in here. So we'll just do a regular skew. Let's try border skew. Border skew did its job here for a border. So now you can see that this is set up. We're going to have three rows that we're going to quilt out, and it just creates a fun design on the fabric. So it's like a polka dot, an ovally polka dot. We'll baseline the design, go to Pro Stitcher, and we'll go ahead and run this one, and we'll just let it stitch out across. All right, we are done stitching. Isn't that a fun design?
I am loving that. While I was stitching out, you were talking about how you use this on a lot of your quilts, and I was saying I've never used this design. So I'm thinking, you know, that might be a new one for me to try out.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's a great one. You can size it. I didn't size it at all, but you can do lots. I've done it in all different sizes, and it's a fun one too. If you're wanting to do some really heavy quilting, you can come back and micro stitch all the way through here, and it really makes all these little dots pop.
And I'm thinking, like, if you wanted to stretch it taller, it would make it more circular rather than oval. Like, you could really have some fun playing with this.
It's a really basic design that's a lot of fun. All right, so we are to the turning of the quilt. Okay. So everybody always, I feel like this is a really big mystery. So let's just walk through the steps, and then we're going to show you guys in time lapse, because this actually will probably take us about 10, maybe 15 minutes to do. So first we are going to unroll the quilt. We're going to take it off the current leaders. Then we are just going to turn it, is it 45, 90 degrees?
I think it's 90.
90 degrees. Yeah, exactly. 45 is the angle.
The
90s
lines that are going this way right now will go this way.
Yes, exactly. And we're just going to turn it and then reload it onto the leaders. Now, just a note, remember that at the beginning, I basted this to the leaders. So we're not going to be unpinning. We're going to be ripping it out. But yeah. All right. Are we ready to turn the quilt?
We're ready.
All right. Let's do it.
Okay. So Kim, you just got done flipping this. I do want to point out that generally we tell people to just do the pinning one person. For time, we work together.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Not as we do. But yeah, so now it's great looking at this because we've got your long strips that you couldn't do before in one throat space because they were going the other way.
Exactly.
So this is a great tip for adding those side borders, or not adding the side borders, but
quilting.
Being able to quilt, because you could do it in one pass.
Exactly.
So fabulous. I have so enjoyed watching all of these different techniques that you've been using. I'm loving this project.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see it completely done.
Yeah, me too.
It's like we get to the end of the project and we're like, I'm just done.
Yeah.
But no, it's going to be fabulous. So.
It's a fun project.
Yep.
So here's a little tip. When you do turn the quilt, sometimes you have a little bit more extra fabric rolling at the ends. And you might get a little bit of floppiness. Is there another way to call this? Sagginess here on the quilt. You guys can see that this is just kind of loose here. So here's a little tip. You can actually just take some extra batting, because of course every quilter has lots of batting scraps. And you can actually tuck that in there, because the quilt's quite tight down to the other end. I can actually tuck some little batting scraps in there to help create a little bit more of an even tension across. So just a little tip when you turn your quilt, sometimes things are just a little different. So
they are. Okay, well, thank you for watching. Make sure you stay tuned for some of our Instagram quilts. We've loved seeing all of the quilts that everybody's posting, so thank you for doing that. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next episode.